I know, we've got a son, thank you very much.
Settled? Good. Everybody settled? Right, okay. I don't have a gavel. Okay. Chair's opening remarks. Number one, I don't have any opening remarks at the moment. I'll be making comments with regard to the BE day, but that's later on number 9. Number 2, apologies for absence received. Chloe? I would imagine that it's just late. Councillor Morehouse?
I have to leave just before 7.
Yes, we noted that in the in that case, as we're on number 2, is there anything that we should cover while you're here, which might be further on in the agenda, that's relevant to your own interests? Councillor Morehouse? No, that's fine. Okay. Number 3, declarations of interest. To receive any declarations of disposable pecuniary interest from members in respect of business to be transacted on the agenda. Is there anything that anybody wants to make any statement on? No, thank you. Number 4, minutes of the Heritage and Townscape Committee. To receive the minutes of the Heritage and Townscape Committee held on Wednesday the 11th. And to consider any matters. I'll run through them myself. Councillor Carter?
That's right. I find the minutes to be an accurate record, but I just wanted, there was a few items, results of the action log, where items have been put into the action log that perhaps we can pick up at all on the minutes, the previous minutes.
I think we'll do the action log next.
Yes. So in that case, we'll go to the action log.
So I propose accepting.
I've got a question on the minutes themselves, HT 0924.4, and also it links to HT 0924.9. In terms of reference, so we reviewed that at the last meeting. There were some suggested changes. 2 things. Firstly, we haven't seen the update in terms of reference, but it was all within the aspect of the terms of reference going to the STC, and obviously last month in September, we're now in November, it hasn't been to STC yet.
I do apologise, I haven't got that done next time for the last STC, but it is firmly on the next one, so I do apologise.
That's
I'll
fine.
make sure it's sent out beforehand.
Yeah. I'm comfortable with any changes. The opportunity to look at them at STC is fine.
Okay.
But I just wanted to make sure we completed what we set out to do.
Apologies there was a delay,
No.
but it is in the next STC meeting.
Right, so
Apologies.
are we happy? Do we have somebody who will propose?
Propose the minutes.
So Councillor Carter proposing, Councillor seconding. And number 5, review of. Can we have a vote on this, please? Who's in favour of the passing minutes?
It used to be a group.
1 abstention and yes, on the minutes.
I do thank you.
Passed. So review of the action and project log. So we had combined the various logs, scoping and everything into one as appropriate to make it simpler and more appropriate. That's attachment number 2. Actually, overall,
Not too bad.
Short,
is it?
yeah. If I just run through basically, if anybody wants to add anything, please say. The first one was the Environment Conservation Group, details of resources, ongoing, and I'll hold my hand up here and say that I'm holding a report from Nikki Warden with regards to some of her proposals, and I still need to report back to Nikki. It's basically to summarise and pick particular things that we should focus on rather than the many that as we have as options. The War Memorial. Right. Yeah. Councillor Chuka.
This
Sorry.
was actually, I think I should have worded it slightly different. Apologies, Councillor, but I was meant to come to you and ask for the details.
Thank you for that, because what I was going to say was when I saw the papers, I thought, oh, there's an action there.
Yes,
For me. However, what I can say is, so this is, Peter Barrow is my conduit to contacting the Guilder. He's been out of the country until yesterday.
Oh,
We've exchanged messages this morning. He will hopefully begin with details of the Guilder.
fantastic. Yeah.
Yeah.
Sorry for not asking that.
No, that's no problem.
So we'll move on. So that is in process. Yes, Councillor Anderson.
We've all been asked, invited as councillors to put in the budgets. And I just wondered what the status of, if we need to spend about £1,000 to get the War Memorial looking as I would like it to look, which it doesn't at the moment. If we need to spend about £1,000, how does that work with the arrangements for the budget?
I believe you need to put in a request. I understand there is a form that you can complete to give to Karen, but I know she's at the later stages
She
now.
certainly is.
Yeah.
I would suggest, could you, Chloe, take that back to her, because actually, it's not an individual in this room wanting to raise it, it's a collective, even a council collective,
Yeah.
isn't it, needing
Okay.
this work.
I can raise that for tomorrow if that's
Yes, thank you.
We'll be looking at
Because,
this.
I mean, personally, I feel very strongly about this. I think the refurbishment, in quotes, of the War Memorial, which then obscured the names of the fallen in the Second World War, I think that's been a bad mistake. We already spent quite a lot of money on getting it refurbished, and I find it very annoying that those names are no longer legible, properly legible. And so I would regard it as rather important that this work be done, but I just want to be clear about what the budget, how the budget is.
Right.
Okay, so I put that as an action to
Yes.
speak to Karen about requesting the budget for restoring the wording.
Yes, thank you very much. The next one, bus shelter with regard to being partially enclosed. Says to be reviewed in November 2024, which is now. Councillor Black.
Yeah, I'm just really wondering, a lot of this talks about street furniture, and my concern was more that the damn thing is got no shelter from the wind or from the rain on three sides, and there's nothing here about what's happening.
So the update is that I know that the town clerk is speaking, sorry, it's been a very long day. Sorry, the town clerk is in conversations to get this meeting underway, and I believe that there will be an opportunity for all council members to put forward their concerns, and I've already noted, Carol George, that your concerns around the inadequate litter bins, so there will be an opportunity for council members.
Excuse me, but I thought this does list what our concerns are, and there's a very specific one here. This has the wind, the prevailing wind is westerly, and yet the western front is completely open.
Okay.
What else do we need to say? I mean, this is going in circles, aren't we?
Sorry, Councillor Chuka.
I think it's inching forward in the sense that where we are is that DDC said that they need to get to November this month to conclude all of their sign-off activities, and then they would tell us how much money, if any, was left in the pot to decide what we wanted to do with it. So this is one element of that, alongside other elements, including what Carol has said, and other elements, but we don't know how much money is available. So until we know that, we can't necessarily have a discussion about actually what we're going to spend money on that may not exist.
I see.
Is there anything we can actually put? Sorry, Councillor.
Yeah, sorry, yeah, just to reiterate what Councillor Tuke has said, we're waiting on DDC. So they said that once they've completed the snagging list, then in the autumn of 2024, they would come back to us and they would hand over the surplus funding to enable us to put the other sides onto the bus shelter that they were enabled to do.
And I'm updating that hasn't been forgotten, that the town clerk is in conversations to make sure that is going ahead.
Okay, it's just the way this is written. This talks entirely about seats and planters, which, you know, I think environmentally might be pleasant, but people need to be sheltered.
Councillor Morehouse?
Just wanted to, on the point of the benches, if you go to Canterbury, the benches they've got in Canterbury are the same structure, but they are actually finished. The bases are powder coated gunmetal grey. Those ones out there, they're awful. They really do look terrible. They need to be finished. I'm also concerned about the fact that if you look at the small trees on the quay, they've got the protection around them. Those trees out there have got no protection.
And I asked for that, didn't I, the tree protection.
Mrs. George?
Yes, I'm a bit concerned too, because we were told, because I know I've been asking where the rest of the furniture is for the forecourt. However, we were told, weren't we, that there was only about £27,000 left in the budget from DDC, and that once the snagging list was complete, which was supposed to have been exactly now, and it was handed back over to Sandwich Town Council, then we would have that money released, and then the Town Council would decide what the priorities were with respect to finishing off the forecourt. So, yes, the bus shelter was quite sort of high up on that list, or at the top of that list, because that bus shelter is nothing like the bus shelter that was in the original plans. It's nothing like the bus shelter that was in the consultation documents that happened in September, immediately before work started in October. And then there is the furnishing and the planters and all the other things, the protection around the trees. There is quite a lot there. But if that's the only amount of money you've got, that's not going to cover all of those things. And I still feel that no one is holding DDC to account for what didn't happen and what did happen, and all the changes that were there at the time that actually this council and many constituents didn't know anything about. It was a presentation or a consultation right before the work started. Lots of things had changed. They weren't pointed out. The bus shelter in particular, I mean, you know, that was supposed to be, yes, it may not have been everyone's taste, toughened glass with etchings of the town scenes on the back of it. It was supposed to have sides. It was supposed to be a proper bus shelter. And yet they chose not to do that without any real consultation, I don't think, certainly to residents, and I don't believe to the town council as it was at that point. And I just think it's wrong. It's dreadfully wrong. And now we've got a situation, and I agree with Councillor Black, where that, you know, that people are constantly complaining about not having anywhere to shelter from the well, and even in the heat, you see them walking across to sit on a bench, which is quite a long way for some of the elderly people or people with some sort of disability to walk to, and then they're worried about, well, the bus will pull up. Where will it pull up? Will it get, you know, will they get back in time? It is a bit of a mess. I'm sorry.
Yes, so a lot of this stuff we talked about a lot. So I think the right time for doing that is when we know what money is left available. The next step should be a challenge from STC to ask where is the end point in terms of what DDC are doing, and ideally, and Councillor Castle would be aware of this in terms of delivering IT programmes, you'd have a sign-off meeting with stakeholders. It doesn't mean to say you'd have a group of 40 people in the room, but you could have representatives to sit down with the project manager and go through the elements that are still outstanding and agree that we're happy that it's signed off. It's not just a case of them sending in an email and saying, we've done all we need to do, here's £50, whatever it might be. I would much prefer it's a far more interactive process with the council, STC, having a discussion with DDC rather than being told it's all done and dusted and this is what's left.
I don't think I was very clear when I was saying that. I think I'm trying to say to you is that it hasn't been forgotten. So the town clerk is in conversations because we now know it's November and this was the deadline. So she's reached out to them to see, right, where's the next step? And at no point will my notes on this here be taken into account and be the final thing that everyone else saw. I understand that there will be more opportunity to ensure that everyone's views are taken into account. It's just that at this time we're just waiting for them to get back to us to confirm when this meeting will be and how much of the funds are left.
Is there any opportunity for the sorry, I'll let you go.
Would it make sense, therefore, to have a list of all the questions that we haven't had answered? Why did it change? You know, I know it sounds like we're going backwards, but why? Who made the decision? Why did we end up with this bus? You know, because the plans come down to do with it, didn't they? The plans that were agreed and plans that were delivered. That, you know.
I think once the meeting is confirmed and the funds are confirmed, that's definitely something that we can move forward. But until we have that information, there's not much we can.
Building up towards this meeting, I mean, this meeting could be this year, next year. Well, there's no definite time, date, whatever for the meeting. How do we get that meeting emphasised, brought forward? Is it something that perhaps a letter from the mayor?
I do think we need to just hold off and see what the town clerk, because she, you know, she is in contact, she's been dealing with it. Unfortunately, you know, there wasn't an update for today. But I will be chasing this up. She will obviously, I'll be feeding back to her tomorrow what happened at this meeting, and then we will go forward from there.
Still early November, so we're not at the end of the month yet. So.
No.
Yes, and also that means 2 months before the next meeting.
Yes, but if there is anything urgent, it can be brought to STC or, you know, other meetings. If there's an urgent need, we could also have an extraordinary.
Yeah, sorry, just on that point, we discussed it at STC as well, and I think we need to be clear when VE Day comes up, and we're raising that as well, we need to be clear about ownership of issues. So is this issue in terms of signing off and going through the list or whatever it is with this committee, or is it with STC?
I believe it's with STC.
Yeah, and we don't want to go through the same thing twice.
No.
I say?
So at the moment, with this particular action, we are.
So I will go back and update the action itself to make sure it includes every item that has been previously discussed at Heritage Townscape, including the shelter and the
Right.
3 sites.
Can we just go through those points then, just so nothing's missed?
Okay.
There's the sides to the bus shelter, seats or benches, litter bins,
Tree guards.
tree guards, planters,
all in the original scope.
yeah.
And the bus stop.
Well, the bus stop is.
Sorry.
I thought I said don't mention the bus stop.
Mentioned it once. Yes. Right, we'll move on from this one. Thank you very much. Right. Not an agenda item. Contact DDC to establish whether there's progress on priorities identified from the 2 consultancy reports produced, Vision for Sandwich and Heritage Harbour and Quay Development, and request this action be reviewed in December 24. So we'll leave that one for now.
I have emailed all of these, so I'm just waiting for the response.
Thank you. The next one, this is with regard to constructing a ramp from the quay path through to the courtyard. Now, can we leave that until we discuss the disability action, or is Councillor
Well, I
Rice?
just want to say, I mean, this, you know, this has been on an agenda of some committee or of the whole council now for probably up to 4 years. I have put into the finance officer a request for a budget.
So the last time we spoke, I do have some updates if you want.
Oh, right.
So the last time we spoke, we were looking at how it could be financed and who was best to lead on the project. And I went to Karen and spoke to her about, because you were exploring the idea of giving a grant. Unfortunately, that hits here at the dead end. There is no pot from STC funds for grants. And then actually...
For a grant to be made to the Ainsley Court
Yes,
Residents Association.
yes, so it can't be done.
No.
I have contacted Ainsley Court as well, but I asked them to come to the January meeting because I knew that there was no grant, and so I wanted to discuss with you before we discussed with them what your next steps might be. So unfortunately, a grant isn't an option at this stage.
No, well, I'm
very
not
prudent.
very keen on that. I thought it was a pretty,
So
not a
we need to
very
go
good
back to
idea.
the drawing board.
I mean, what is the point of meeting with the Ainsley Court?
Well, that's why I delayed it, because I wasn't sure. I didn't want to write them and then say, but we haven't got anything in place. But I have made contact with them to ensure that they are still keen or
Yes.
on the idea.
Well, they are.
Yes,
Yeah.
and I just wanted to make sure.
Yes. But I've put in the money from STC now of £2,500, which is what has been sitting in the budget for years now. So I've just repeated that request. But I do want something to happen.
Yes.
But I think it's a discussion now between members on how we want to move it forward.
Well, if we stick with this one, because I know we're covering it to an extent in the disability entry, but as we're on this, is it potential for a grant from the Tollbridge Fund?
No, unfortunately not. I did go through that as well with the finance officer to see if that was an option, but it didn't really fall under any of the
Criteria.
criteria.
But is that not a diversion? I mean, you know, other things get money from the town council, including, for example, the roads or whatever it is, the St Paul's thing, you know, and it goes through very quickly.
I don't believe that.
No.
So
Yeah,
if
that's-
I'm-
no, we have to make it.
That's very good.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, other people have put in, presumably for other projects dear to their heart, and I don't see why this should be regarded as something separate and different.
It is.
So I have a more basic question. Who's actually leading this project? Because
Yeah, exactly.
my question would be, if you've got a project leader that's able to come up with the solutions for us to consider, I'm not equipped to say how we deliver an STC funded solution. I just am not. So I don't know who's leading this project.
Councillor Carter.
Oh, sorry, yeah, I'm sorry. Yes, so 2 items. Number one, the first item is Ainsley Court. That's not a public right of way through Ainsley Court, so that is actually private land. So we can't actually give a grant of money to a
I
management.
don't want a grant of money, I want a project funded.
Yeah, you have got a project funded. So I've kept your project funded for the last 2 years. So every time you've come to me and said, oh, could that, because last year Karen cut it in half, and then I reinstated it for it. But we can't give the money to Ainsley Court because they are a private. That was the initiative. The initiative at this meeting when we were last here was to give the money to them. That can't be done, so that's in the story.
Yes.
Councillor Chuka's right. Somebody should be leading this project forward.
Well, I'd have to lead it, but you know,
It needs
tell me what I
somebody
have
to
do.
contact KCC and move it forward with KCC.
So why is that up to a councillor and not possible from the Guildhall staff?
It's not a project for the benefit of the town. Is it? It's for the management. It's going to be enhancing private property.
No, it's
So
not. It's
Well,
in order to
it
make
is.
a public pathway through from the Quay car park into Strand Street.
It's not an STC project,
Well, thank you very much. Let's just write it.
like the bicycle racks.
Let's just
My
forget
bicycle
that.
racks are exactly the same. I would not be expecting the Guildhall staff to look for grants and find the money or the things for the bicycle
I'm not
racks.
asking for grants. I'm asking, as I presume other councils have done, I've put in for £2,500 as part of STC budget, and we haven't yet decided on those particular projects. I imagine there'll be half a dozen.
I think the point he was trying, Mayor, if you don't mind, was
See,
trying to
indeed,
make
Cameron.
was is that it was an example of the kinds of work that maybe officers in the building can't undertake or wouldn't undertake because this is part of the Mayor's project. I think at the moment we are short-staffed. There isn't capacity, I would say.
Okay,
At
well,
this
let's
time.
just forget about it.
Well, I don't think it needs to be forgotten about, but if you don't want to push it forward, I think then that's your choice as the project lead.
Oh, Councillor.
Sorry, I've got every sympathy, I'm afraid, with Councillor Anderson, because the disability and access group that was formed, I don't know, 4 or 5 years ago, it wasn't just about that one issue, it was about the accessibility around the town of disabled people or people with buggies, you know, and wheelchairs. And at the time, the route that was suggested and came out with an even bigger plan was to go all the way through, to get from the Quay to Strand Street, from Strand Street into, if you like, Milk Alley eventually, or through King Street, Milk Alley. That was all part of the plan, including taking out a couple of bays, or at least one bay, to drop the curb on the other side of Strand Street, so that you could, and to replace those bays with the ones at Breezy Corner. So there was a plan that was put forward, and it stayed there for a very long time, and was actually being reported back here under the disability plan. So there was a plan. I think the suggestion, Mr Mayor, came from you that maybe it should come to Ainsley Court management team to have, for them to take it over and build it themselves, and for us for STC to supply the money. But I don't think we can just abandon a disability and access plan, which includes that, because that's the only way. Every other alleyway down there has been explored. You cannot get a wheelchair down there. So, and to go down to the one right at the bottom, you can get a wheelchair there, but you can't cross a road there. So that, you know, having done all of this work to establish what's the best route, just seems crazy that we're just we're willing to abandon it.
Yes, no, I appreciate, so we know that STC can't give a grant to Ainsley Court.
No.
Yes, Tollbridge can't give a grant to Ainsley. Can we ensure that when the Maddox Trust rules are being set, that we can give a grant?
But I don't understand why we need to give a grant. This is a public group, not a private group.
But it's on
This is a
private land,
public
which
group.
makes it private.
So the crux of the matter is that we have a project that we all support. We have money in the bank to pay for it. We need somebody on point to actually say, I will go and find a solution to bring to this group to get approved or not. Somebody needs to step up for that. Now it's either Councillor Anderson or it's a member of staff. But between you, something to decide, because it will not move anywhere. And we can go around all the arguments about what's needed in the town. But this is one very clear element we have said we will support. So it just agreement needs to be reached.
Well, if you, I'm not the town clerk, so
No.
I can
I'm
take
not
this
town
to the
clerk.
town clerk and I can ask her where she feels it sits. And if she feels as the town clerk there is capacity in-house to do it, and if not, and we can go from there.
Can I just ask Mrs. George, so who devised the plan? Because obviously whoever devised the plan should be
That was-
leading it forward.
That was done in the Disability and Access Group. It was a spin-off originally from the town team, because no one else appeared to be dealing with it at that time. Councillor Anderson, who wasn't a councillor then, but did take it on, and between the group, including Councillor Chandler, Councillor Dan Friend, Richard Ralph, Chris Elvin. So there were a group of people that were asked to look and come up with some sort of a plan that would allow access for people with disabilities and people with buggies to get around the town. That was there, that whole plan, and it had been researched, was there before. We, as far as we knew at that point, the step forward was to go and speak to the management of Ainsley Court, which is what happened. And then the next point of there, and they said it was their idea that path was actually a path for anyone to walk through. Because it's totally different brick. There's one step up and you go into that pathway which is totally different brickwork to everywhere else in there. And everyone in the town uses that when they're cutting through, anyone that's able, because there's one step up. So there was a plan. Where that plan went to and disappeared, I don't know. But it is there.
Because I'm trying to understand here, I've granted for the last 2 years while I've been mayor, I've granted the grant and enabled that to go ahead. And people are saying there's been a plan there for 4 years, the funding's been there for 4 years, so what are the blockers?
Because
why is it not?
Because they were asked to go back. Apparently the pathway had to be investigated by Kent County Council, and then the wrong alleyway was reviewed, so that delayed it all over again. Then you come back again and find it's this alleyway, and now suddenly this alleyway is not a public footpath, as I understand it.
That's correct.
So, and that I find amazing, that Ainsley Court management think it's a public footpath.
It may not be, but it's not my. I don't know who to ring up in Kent County Council. I suppose somebody will find out for me. I'm quite happy to make a phone call. I would be prepared to bet at very long odds that nothing would happen if I phoned. Absolutely nothing. And then if I wrote an email, nothing would happen as a consequence of that. I do think that this sort of issue is appropriately handled by staff.
And I have agreed that I will take it back to the town clerk to confirm.
So every project has a life cycle. We shouldn't really be going back to the early stages of this project, because actually we've moved to a point where we want to get to solution design. Engagements needed with Kent County Council. We have Councillor Chandler coming to STC at the next meeting, I hope. She's been on the disability.
Yes.
So that's the way to shortcut this, but somebody just needs to be in the driver's seat, is all I'm saying. We're in solution design stage now, and that's what we should be doing, rather than trying to rehearse all of the previous arguments, because I think we've dealt with that. We've agreed we want to do it, we've got money available, let's get a solution design with KCC involvement.
Exactly.
So if KCC say yes, how do we physically get the money in? Are we then going to argue about how we get that money into the project? Because the money is available, but we can't give it to Ainsley Court.
No, we can't.
Can we give it to Kent City Council?
Yes, we can do, because obviously if it was a part of the HIP, we can invoice to another council, because they're not a private individual. The only reason we can't give it to Ainsley Court is because they're a private management company.
Why do we have to give it to anybody? This council contracts with builders to do all sorts of things.
Because the issue is the land itself is private, it's not council land that we can. So that's why the idea was that this is a possible solution. If the money was with them, they could
But
create.
that's not. So the point is that Ainsley Court people have always thought that was a public right of way. And they've always assumed that because the brickwork is different, that it's actually marked as a public right of way, and are rather surprised to discover that it's not a public right of way. So maybe that's what we have to do first. We have to get it declared as a public right of way, and that is the way to proceed. And it's called it's called Ives Gate. Dover District Council and KCC thought it was Pillory Gate that we were talking about. We're not. We're talking about Ives Gate.
Can I just clarify that?
Yes.
Did I misunderstand that you said you had a public footpath on your land?
Yes,
And
I-
actually it still belonged to you,
Yes.
even though it was a public, so actually,
Yes,
I don't
that's
think that
almost wrong.
solves the
Yeah.
issue.
Okay. Well then, we just.
So that's why we would try
But
and to find
in
out.
turn,
I
Dover
think it should
District
apply to
Council
cases,
has
so-
gates on my land.
Well, they
So,
maybe it's-
so why doesn't whoever wants to be in the lead on this actually write to Sue Chandler and ask her to open the door to the right person or people
Exactly.
in
That's all it
KCC
needs.
based on the spec of what we want to
Okay,
do.
well, I'm happy to write to Sue Chandler. I will be surprised if I get an answer.
Councillor Black.
We seem to go round and round in circles. If it's public land, there's no argument, it could be funded for this. If it's private land, then the issue is, are the owners prepared to allow a modification to be made to their land, in which case you pay a contractor to do it.
Yes.
Yes,
It's
they
quite
are
simple.
prepared. They
Yes.
are. They've
Yes.
said
So,
many times
we are
they're
very-
prepared.
Chasing our own tails to a certain extent. I appreciate it's a difficult one, and it's not helped by people not going to the wrong gate. But come on.
Can we move on from this at the moment? I'm sorry that we haven't resolved anything, but
I think we have to clear
I
action.
think we have. I think
Yeah.
we've obviously got some more
Do you want me
actions.
to write to Councillor Chandler?
And I'm going to see if the project can be taken in-house.
Yeah.
That's,
Well done, Councillor Anderson.
Well, I haven't done anything yet. I'm still not clear what I'm going to ask her. What am I supposed to ask?
Think how much it would cost to do it, and will KCC
what?
to build the ramp?
No. The money I think probably will be there. Yes. Southampton Council. So what do I ask Councillor Chandler?
So I think it has to be an explanation of the specification of what we want to do, so that, and what we've done in terms of engagement. So it's just outlining where we are today, the solution we want to implement, and we need to discuss with KCC how we make that happen. That's what I think it should be.
Is that why is KCC involved? Because it's not a public right of way. Is that the reason?
Yeah.
I haven't flagged up KCC's involvement, suddenly it wasn't mine.
Not me. I mean, my first thoughts were that if we've got the money, and Ainsley Court say yes, and it's within that amount of money,
Let's go and get
Let's
it priced,
do
get
it.
it done.
Yes,
But it
exactly.
seems that
That's what it,
because it's Ainsley Courts, we can't do it.
So they said they wanted.
But that's, I mean, we could go around this. I think the first thing is, I'm sorry, Councillor Anderson, is, as has been suggested, if you write to Sue Chandler.
And what do I
I
ask?
really don't know at the moment.
Suggest
Just
that
spell
you
it out
ask
again.
what legal stipulations are in place that would restrict it or enable it, and who would be the right people, the lawyers to speak to.
That's right.
Alternatively, if we can find a very generous businessman in Sandwich to sponsor it.
I would be surprised if the money is the issue. I'm still not clear what the issue is, but I would be disappointed if the money were the issue, because there will be other projects. But I mean,
Yes.
presumably-
I think the point you just made, there will be other projects. Are we going to go through this with every disability element? Because I'm sure there are many areas that we can maybe find the money, but find we can't spend it because of some rule, which is why I suggested that. So we're just starting to.
With
There may be
respect, with
precedent.
all the other plans there, it was either very clear that other places were either KCC, well, we're normally KCC, because you're crossing roads. There were lines across the bridge, the one end of the bridge, and all sorts. And Councillor Chandler was taking that forward. So I think it is a matter of actually saying to her we want to carry this forward now, there is an issue. I'm assuming that the lane that runs along the river is KCC. Is that KCC? Is that a road? Because we're talking about a step up on the pathway. Is that KCC's land?
If that's a public right of way, it is.
Yes, because it's the piece that runs from
I
Solbridge.
think it's right. I think, and this is the issue about the project. I don't think we like the collective. It's been scoped out, probably the detail.
No.
We're asking questions now, so I'm confused. I thought it was private.
The key part is not private, no.
And that's why I said.
Who does
On Fisherman's Wharf.
But as far as I understand, it's KCC.
Well, then we do need to engage with them.
In that case, can we move on? In terms of what the letter should be, could you speak to Chloe or town clerk just to get a final?
Sorry to interrupt, but anybody that's been here quite some time will know there was a councillor called Joe Trussler who's on this council, and if you know where the steps are, up to Neil Wall, the not disability access steps that there's about 3 or 4 steps. Councillor Joe Trussler got the funding and he paid for drawings to put a ramp in so that wheelchair users could avoid those steps. 10 years later, still wasn't done. He had the funding, he got the plans cost him £470 to get drawn up, and once again KCC said, oh, they couldn't undertake it themselves because it was a private project. So,
at that time, Mr. Mayor, I actually spent a lovely day with Sue Chandler, walking all the way around the Ramparts Walk, and we came to those steps, and it was discussed, and then I was told afterwards that they would have to be regraded, because obviously it had to be made into a slope. The angle of them meant that it would be nearly up to the bowling club, and there wasn't enough money to go around, and that's what I was told.
Right. Can we move on?
Yes.
I think we could spend all night. Moving on to not the will to live. Compass Rose. There's nothing really to be added there, so we can move on. No update. It's all happening. Network Rail, Kent Resilience Forum, KCC. This is still in the process of being organised. Information will be sent to Heritage Townscape.
I have spoken to Network Rail again, and I have raised this because I know this is an issue that you're very keen on. So they have changed the gentleman that is that I hopefully organised to come. He has now moved to a different department, so he has now passed it on to his colleagues, and I chased him up to see if they can please attend the meeting for you to discuss with them the issue of the closure of that February.
I thought they also wanted some additional questions.
Yes, they can. Yeah,
Well,
well,
could
this was
somebody,
the other guy.
as I've got a little bit of expertise in this, can you tell me what the additional questions are, or what sort of areas they're concerned about? Because I haven't seen any correspondence. And I can come back to them answers in about 2 hours flat, because I know a little bit about them.
So now that it's with a new person, they may not require any questions, they may be able to just come along, so I'm waiting for them.
All right, okay, that's fine.
I've made contact.
Yeah, well, great.
So we're waiting on that. We can move on from that point. With regard to meeting with Nicky Warden, the tree warden, to discuss the report in more detail. This is with regard to tree planting, climate emergency. I had a meeting with Nicky. The ball's in my court to report back to her and basically clarify which projects to emphasise. And as I said earlier, with regard to SECG, that's my lack of getting on with that. So my apologies there, and I will commit to moving on with Nicky and watch this space. The next one was mowing regime. I think this is Councillor Schuker and Councillor Morehouse.
Yes, so we did meet with DDC officers. We've agreed that they've agreed they've agreed that they're open to discussions around a selective mowing regime. This was triggered by SECG, so myself, Councillor Ripley was there, Councillor Morehouse was just me. We met with SCCG to get an initial discussion with them around what it is that they're going to suggest should be tackled. The follow-up meeting is on the 18th, and Councillor Mallet is now involved. So there's 4 of us actually as councillors representing in that discussion. Once we've had that meeting, we will then go back to DPC to have a conversation with them about the way selective mowing regime targeted.
And moving on from there, there's no other comments. Community transport.
So this is where we've moved into the section where I've just placed in all of the individual projects. So I haven't, I didn't put in great detail because I thought that would be something I can add to, but I just copied over from your original forms.
Brilliant.
Can I just give you a very quick update?
Yes.
On this? I haven't progressed this for a number of reasons, and I haven't put a budget submission in because it's going to be a big one. Woodport, who have been doing this for a number of years, is still, and it's a much larger town with a much more regional focus, it's still costing them of the order of 20,000 a year. Faversham budgeted for 60,000 a year. I need to go back to Faversham and talk to them as to how successful it's been, because that's probably the nearest equivalent. But I haven't progressed this, so that's down to me. I will re-establish it, but I am not in a position to get any kind of sensible bids together for the budget. But it's going to be fairly big bucks by our standards.
Yeah, thank you. Any other comment then? Bike racks, we'll just go through this quite quickly. Bike racks review.
I'm going to have to ask for that to be postponed perhaps to 2025.
Yeah.
It's unfortunately I've been doing things like installing wardens and things for goodness sake. So
rather busy.
yes.
No, that's. Street furniture, 106 items being surveyed. The action there.
Quick update, budget pro forma has been submitted, and that's to support a volunteer-based effort next year to refresh some of the assets along the town trail. And in parallel, I have agreement from DVC Assets Management team to discuss my inventory and what joint working might be possible. So they both go hand in hand, and owing today I'm chasing my accounts. I'm looking to hopefully be with them by early December.
Thank you. Okay with that? Just a quick one on Slow Ways National Walking Network. Yeah, no, we'll move on from that, that's great. Parking and speeding to be assigned.
So I wasn't, sorry, I just wanted to say this was for Councillor, I believe they belonged to Councillor Marie, who at the time was able to do, so they were never reassigned at that point, so I wasn't sure if you wanted to keep them or whether you wanted to take them off.
Well, as a Southport councillor, this is a big problem. And Mark and I were just discussing this, and he's already chasing up enforcement of the particular issue we've got in Four-Ridge Place at the moment. It is a problem, not necessarily where the previous person was saying it was a problem. There are other places where it is an issue. I'm reluctant to take it on until we know definitely that Councillor Marie is not dealing with it. If he isn't dealing with it, then I think that it is a major issue for Southport, far more than is realised, and the parking is a nightmare. And enforcement, I'm trying to get enforcement to come up a lot more frequently to start dealing with illegal parking, but some of the roads just, you can't help it.
Yes, so this project originally was about improvements being identified, and I just wonder when we're going to be looking at the highway improvement plan being relaunched. I would hope and expect an amount of this should feed into this, so we represent it visibly in a way that it might be funded if any of those go to the top of the list. So that's due to sort of happen late November, early December, the first stage activity.
Right.
It's just a comment that on Monday, next Monday the 18th, the town team have got a special meeting purely to address and look at the issues of speeding and parking in the town, shall I say, but it's trying to look at whether we can come at this in a completely different way. You have KCC who said there isn't any evidence of speeding in certain roads, when actually everyone you speak to is aware that there is an issue, but the rubbers didn't, or the data didn't present that. However, we've just asked the town team members, and obviously the councillors that represent the town team, to come and see if we can brainstorm it in the way we did before, looking at what else can we do to address issues of speeding. So it could be that you major on something like the pollution that it's bringing to the town, the destruction of the buildings. It might be something someone comes up with that says one-way system doesn't work, or doesn't help the fact that we speed. So it's just a bit of a brainstorming, and that will be reported back on, we can report back on that. So, because there could be things obviously for the HIP reporting. Yeah.
Councillor Black?
I just wondered, I haven't been to a town team meeting, and I just don't know how many people are from the south. I mean, obviously, the most of the problems previously have been very much north, and that's one of the concerns that the three Southwood councillors have got.
Yeah.
That there's no focus on there, and we've got the residential problem.
Yeah, we have town team members who are from both parts of the borough.
Right. Okay.
So from the town. So, but if anyone wants to come, the town team is open to everyone. So you're welcome to come along on Monday
I'll
morning.
the battery.
But we've got people, for instance, who are saying St George's Road is being ignored because that's a terrible rat run. The same at Woodensborough Road, and so we are aware it's not just this centre of the town.
Okay, that's great.
Is there any implication that people speed because they're using the town as a rat run from Thanet through to Deal?
Yes.
So that if, for example, and we're going to be discussing access for people with wheelchairs, if, for example, the toll bridge was closed to all traffic apart from pedestrians, wheelchairs and bicycles, then nobody would bother about driving through as a rat run.
It was suggested a long time ago, or phasing the traffic lights differently in the morning and the evening. But you've got Willowbank expanding. One of the issues you've got to be really careful about is that you're not affecting legitimate business in the town. So people coming across the bridge, and at one point the people on Discovery Park were encouraged to use the businesses in the town. Now I don't think that happens so much now because they've built their own businesses over there. But I think these are all things that need to be put back into the mounting pot and to see how this could how the town might work.
Councillor Ripley, then we'll move on.
Yeah, I agree that a lot needs to be done regarding the pedestrian access, etc. over the toll bridge, but I don't think we could bar traffic from there at all. It would just be we've got, as you say, all the Willowbank housing down there. Then there's all potentially the housing that's going to be on Discovery Park. It would be a disaster if we did that. But certainly we could look at the use of the traffic lights over the toll bridge. I think would be a major thing to do.
Okay, that's a nasty chance. That wasn't right. I will be giving you a verbal update on ideas.
Could I just say, Mr. Chairman, if we assign somebody to this or we drop it off, because otherwise if nobody, I really believe that somebody in the interim should just hold it over so that they accumulate any information to bring forward to this committee. So if we're not assigning it, it's just a loose item at the end of this agenda, isn't it?
I'm sorry, but we have to get it clear. The councillor has been assigned to it. Now, is that councillor doing it or not?
He's not, he's stepped down.
He's withdrawn
Yeah.
completely.
Yeah, withdrawn completely.
Yeah, he said he's not going to do it.
So we either need to get we either need somebody there just to accumulate the information, not actually undertake any actions, but accumulate the items, or we need to take it away, because otherwise there's nothing's being done about it, and we're going to talk about it at the next meeting.
Or pause it.
Or alternatively, we defer it until after we're clear about the HIP process,
Yes.
so we can move it through to say January, and then we can reflect on whether we feel the HIP process is capturing.
I'm very reluctant to take it on without knowing how it ties into it and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And Mark's equally concerned about it, and I'm sure Vicky is as well. But I'm not in a position today to say I can take it on, because I need to see how it
Defer it
ties in.
until after the HIP process.
Shall we, yes, defer till after here, so
Yeah.
we won't discuss it in the next one, otherwise we're just talking for the sake of talking. Right, public participation, number 6, 20-minute session. I don't see any members, any requests nor people, so we'll move on from there. Number 7, disability access strategy, verbal update from Councillor Anderson, and on discussions concerning options for improved access for pedestrian bumps. If you'd like to add anything.
Well, yes, I mean, I have talked, as if you remember, I received a letter, because Ben Garrett and I met with Roger Gale MP to talk about what might be done in terms of possibly building a pedestrian bridge. And he wrote back a sympathetic letter, but he said he wanted to have a sort of ballpark figure as to what a pedestrian bridge would involve in terms of resources. So, and he suggested that Ben and I, find a TAME engineer. Well, I don't know any TAME engineers apart from Councillor Peter Breen. So I consulted with Councillor Peter Breen, who has experience of project managing major bridge building projects, and he was very happy to come and talk to me. And he and I went together to look at the toll bridge. And Peter Breen, and I'm going to call him Councillor Breen because that's not the capacity in which I was consulting with him, had a number of ideas about what might be done. Also, he was quite clear about what the ballpark cost might be, which was far higher than I thought it might be, and was hoping it might be, and also a view about the amount of disruption that there would be if there were to be an additional pedestrian and cycle bridge built. And he thought that that would cause so much trouble that it probably isn't worth even thinking about. However, what Peter Breen agreed to do, and I hope this committee will be agreeable to that, is to draw up a list of options. And one of those options has just been raised, the possibility of making it a pedestrian-only, the existing bridge, a pedestrian-only bridge, but that obviously has issues connected to it, which I think should be appropriately discussed in this setting. So he has offered to draw up a list of options, which would be various, including, well, I won't go into them, but there would be the question of traffic lights and how they're timed, the question of the site of the pavements, whether a pavement could be taken away from one side of the bridge and the other side widened, so that would be a possibility. There are all sorts of different might work, which would not be as expensive, anything like as expensive as building a new pedestrian bridge. But if you're happy with that, he would be happy to come and talk to this committee at its next meeting, which will be in January, about those options, in his capacity as an expert on bridges, not as a councillor. I also think it might be useful if Roger Gale were available for him to come along too, because I mean he wants to be informed of these kinds of discussions.
I think that would be an excellent councillor feedback.
So Peter's going to be looking purely at the moment at the existing bridge structure.
No,
because the
I think-
option's the other one. You've got the right of navigation, which is a huge problem.
Oh yes, yes. Well, that's why, one of the reasons why a new pedestrian bridge would have to be extremely expensive, because it would have to be an open bridge. But I mean, I'm talking about all options, so he would, I presume, I haven't told him to, but he will draw up options which would include a new pedestrian bridge, which would have to be an open.
Yes, and
So if I wanted to expand on my grandiose plans for that whole area, which includes pedestrianising the existing bridge, is it appropriate that I write to Councillor Green?
okay.
Well, you could do, but
Sorry, can I
why
suggest-
not wait until he presents the options?
Can I suggest that we have additional options coming through Chloe? So that we have a meeting in January. We have we've all got the opportunity of writing in with ideas, whether it's shuttle buses, what have you, bridges further on, closing the, there's all sorts of things we can do. A tunnel, as insane as it might be, but so that we can all submit ideas potentially through one person, through yourself.
That's fine.
Yes.
Yeah.
And then I'll invite Peter Brain as opposed to Councillor Brain to come and just go through it, and we can spend and have it as an agenda item and discuss that, and very focused, not to make a decision, but just so that we can understand and pass that through to STC or DDC or KCC as
And would we want Roger Gale, given that he's interested?
Yes, of course. If he's able to come, that would be great. And
I was just going to say, as a seasoned project manager, wouldn't it be a good idea to get the main stakeholders to come along to see if it was actually able to be undertaken? So I'm talking about Kent County Council highways, because if we start sort of saying, oh yeah, this is what we'd like, and you know, we'd like an area where we could have events and do whatever and all this sort of thing, if Kent County Council immediately said, well, no, that under current legislation, it's not possible to do that, then that saves us doing, you know, massive sort of discussions and scenarios, bringing MPs in who are extremely busy and things like that. It's just, there's one thing that will either make it go ahead or not make it go ahead, and that's the highways legislation. Now, I don't think there's anybody in this room that is educated in highways legislation, so I suggest having a stakeholder such as KCC. It's a brilliant idea, and I'm all behind it, but let's make sure that we can do it before we take things too far. That's all I would request.
Councillor Schubert, and then
So I'd like to echo what Councillor Carter said, because I think we might be slightly approaching it in the wrong way, but as a parish council, we should be really identifying the problem rather than starting with the solution. So what I'm not really clear about is what data have we got that justifies any investment? There's some stuff, but that's not being captured anywhere in a clear demonstration of what the need is. We have to have that, because nobody will entertain any requests for spending money from a parish council if we can't evidence that we've got an issue to resolve. So that's number one. And then taking it to the other end, I agree completely. A lot of times we invested in the parish council, and if KCC are unwilling to be on board at all, we are wasting our time. I'm hoping Peter comes up with costings, because I do feel it's not going to be in any extent within our control to invest any money in any solution. So I feel like we're sort of holding the monkey at the moment, and I don't think we know who to pass it to, and we're going to probably spend a lot of time nurturing that monkey without actually having a way forward. So what's the starting point, and what's the reality about getting to an end point?
Can I suggest the starting point at the moment, not necessarily it's the right starting point, is we're talking about a bridge. If the starting point should be, what are the options? What
The starting point should be, what's the problem?
well, we know what the problem is, but
Well,
the
do
problem, we have a solution already. The solution is the bridge.
What's the problem? Sorry, what's the problem?
The problem
So we've
is-
got bridge.
yes.
What's the problem? The new problem we need to address.
The problem is we're having a growth in population on the other side of the bridge, the north side. We don't know quite how that they will, well, they will come across on a bridge which is totally unsuited to people using it alongside cars. So we've got a solution that is wrong, but we do have a solution. And it's probably the right solution, which is sustainable going forward for the next.
Can you point me to the documented articulation of the problem today?
No, I wouldn't go with that.
And that's where we need to start from. Any solution has to be based on the requirements, and I'm not clear what the requirement is. There are some anecdotal evidence that's been mentioned, some people who have problems coming across, but that doesn't result in an investment of £3 million. No, I'm just taking it as the extremes of this.
Sorry, in terms of identifying the problem, or confirming what the problem is, we probably should do some work on footfall across the bridge. The numbers of people that walk across the bridge in both directions, the number of cars that come across that bridge, the number of lorries that come across that bridge. And much like we did with the original traffic survey, the Lorry Watch survey, it's about doing that over a 7-day period, from 7 in the morning till 7 at night, and actually having a team of people who will do the count. Because then you'll find out how many there are now. You can then project that on in respect of the number of properties that they're envisaging going in, the number of built businesses that might expand over there, and we already, I think, Discovery Park can probably tell us how many people that there are on there, and so then you can build up the data that says this is what the problem is now, and this is where we believe the problem is going to be in 2 years, 5 years, 10 years time, and because I think Councillor Black sort of talked about the fact that someone did about the rat race, and we are almost sure that the vast majority of cars coming across that bridge are not people coming into the town to shop or use the facilities. They are using it to go either up the High Street or even cut round and going in via Night Ride Street into St George's Road. So we could do that. That is something that is doable to build that information up. But I think the other issue I'd say is that you kind of need to move it on and get some ideas of what else is possible if we've got the right information about the data, if we've got the right data.
Right. We're actually supposed to be talking about disability access strategy. Distracted a bit. I'll have one more comment.
Just briefly, in the spirit of inviting stakeholders, I think we should invite the Port and Haven Commission, because they would have a lot to say about boat traffic up and down if a new bridge was.
Yeah. So in terms of and I'm not inviting discussion, in terms of where we leave this particular subject, we seem to be have discussed it a lot, but we've got no point to this discussion. I'm trying to think of the right words there.
I thought there was a meeting set up with,
We were going to get to a meeting, but the point of that meeting is going to be, if we have too many, initially, can we have it just with Peter Brady?
I think we should.
Just Peter, no MP, nobody else, so that we can get an idea of bridge, and may I suggest that we also have an idea of other solutions, so that the bridge, other solutions, and we can have a limited discussion on that, with some idea of where we would favour going.
And then if out of that conversation it's agreed by the group that's got legs on it, then it needs to be formally adopted as a project within this committee, and somebody needs to lead it and develop.
I think that's an idea. We can move on from that. So Chloe, we are free to send in short ideas, short emails to Chloe, to be just basically catalogued. If you allow me, if I have view of that, or we can share them. I'm sure we can share them. So, or to share with the agenda, to share throughout. But can we avoid discussing it on email? Otherwise, the emails will get very, very long. if we can move.
So, Councillor Anderson, do you want me to contact Councillor Green, or are you inviting him separately?
Well, no, if you could.
Yeah.
But, I mean, I do think these ideas, and I suspect that Peter Green, not Councillor Green, Peter Green has already probably thought of all the ideas that will come up. Because in discussion we had lots. You know, I agree in public consultation, so I strongly support it. So I'm all in favour of all of us sending ideas into Terry, but I think we'll find, but Terry passing them on to Peter Green, but I think we'll find that he might think, so what's new?
If we can keep a very short email, so that if appropriate, as we meet the next time, each of us can read out their own ideas, not necessarily for discussion, but so that it's thrown in a pot. Yeah. Can we move on now? Right. Number 8. Historic panels. Members to be updated on the progress with the historic panels for Sandwich project. And can I really hand over to yourself?
Certainly, Simon.
Yeah.
I woke up this morning at 6 o'clock, and as I went to make coffee, there was an email from our beloved Mayor, which he'd sent after midnight, very much asking me if I could come and say a few words about this lovely project. Anyway, 2 years ago, it was put to me that the panels in Sandwich and in Dover and in Deal were in a appalling state, and that Dover Council wanted to update them and make them look far more presentable. I was a little sceptical of this at first, because in the 20 years that I've been involved, all this work, as the Mayor backed me up, has been done twice by the History Society, including translations, etc., etc. It then goes off to Dover, where it gets kicked around, disappears into the long glass. There's planning applications and all sorts of things. Anyway, this time I was assured that John Iveson would be involved in it, and Keith Parfitt would be involved in it, and so I was rather heartened by that. And what I really wanted was that all this information that's going to be provided was going to be correct. And there's been not only myself but a lot of people working on this. When I first received a bundle of stuff from DDC, it came in 4 envelopes, at least 4 inches thick. There are 20 odd panels around the town, and I was asked if I would go and put historical input onto them. Now, the panels that we've got have got brief sort of synopsis of what's gone on in that area, what the history is, but they also want QR codes. So each one of these panels has taken me a minimum of half a day, at the very least, and a whole day of research not helped by the fact that there's of course no access downstairs to the archive, so I'm having to rely on my own knowledge and memory, my own collection of books, etc., etc. I'm glad to say to you that all this work's now been completed. It's been scrutinised by Keith Parfitt from an archaeological point of view, John Iverson, who's holding the purse strings, I believe, Sarah Pearson, who is another co-author of the Blue Book, and an academic, and myself, and this stuff's been going backwards and forwards with meetings and all sorts of things behind the scenes. Anyway, it has now all been submitted. It's gone to Anita Sedgwick, who's part of DDC's team, and she's been liaising and pulling the whole thing together. And I'm very pleased to tell you that the information regarding the panels, including illustrations and everything else, has now gone off to DDC's designers, who are going to produce rough up panels, I think. Then it's then coming back to DDC, where it is going to be signed off, I'm assured, by whoever's in charge down there. And then the panels will be produced and they will be put up. The only problems, I believe, are the panels that were removed from the forecourt. Apparently they require planning permission, and I didn't see any planning permission about them being removed. And one on the butts, which is now apparently, when it suits, becomes a national monument, and when it doesn't matter. Anyway, that's got to be applied for. But everything is, I am assured, is going to be signed off. The money is already there and has been put to one side and is ring-fenced. And just for once in our lives, in my 20 years here, where Dover, Deal and Sandwich have been involved, Sandwich is going to be the first place that is going to get the new panels, and they are then going to move on to Deal and Dover, and so jolly good luck to them with that. I don't think possibly they may not find it quite as simple to do that. But anyway, that is what the current situation is. It's taken a long time to get here, but I'm very pleased to say that it is. Obviously when I'm long gone, people will be able to look on their mobile phones and find out all about the various aspects of the town. Interesting things did come up during the sort of investigations that went on. Sarah Pearson, from an academic point of view, kept asking for written evidence of things that happened in 14, whatever it was, etc. Unfortunately, I haven't got access to the black books or the red books, which would have shown exactly what happened, because we have the best set of archives of any town in the country, going back hundreds of years. But of course, unfortunately, they're all in Maidstone, so they can't be got hold of. I'm just hoping that it does actually go through this time, and that people will enjoy walking around. And when everybody on the History Societies, we're all getting sort of on for 80 now, all the guides and people have disappeared, except you, Paul, you'll be on your own, that people will be able to find out about the town, and most importantly to me, that it will actually be correct information and not some of the drivel that gets published round and about by various people.
Thank you very much, John.
Who was first?
I think Lynn was before me, certainly.
Yes, Councillor.
Having read it all and seen it, I think it's absolutely fantastic what's being done. I'm just curious about the size of these notice boards that it's going on, because there's a lot of information here and the pictures as well. Is it all, each...
I think there will be a brief synopsis of what's happening in the area. Then the idea is you will slam your phone on the QR code and you will get all the rubbish that I've come up with. Pages and pages of it.
The other thing is, there's two photographs at the end which said overview left of Undercroft, and I'm quite...
Where it's going to get put.
I
looked at that. Yes, I looked at that and I thought, yes.
The two panels that didn't require any planning permission to be removed are going to be inserted, and I think there was a discussion the other day as to where they're going to go.
That makes more sense.
Councillor Anderson next,
Yes.
and then
Yes,
Councillor Black.
I was going to congratulate you. I think these are excellent, but this is, as I understand it, just two panels. but you've done 20, is that right?
There are 24 panels and 4 subsidiary smaller panels.
And you've done all of them?
I've done all of them, yes.
And these are just for our
It's my swan
information,
song.
as samples, as it were, of what, because we've got panel 2, I just wasn't clear.
Just to confirm that the Devon District Council submitted a whole series of proposed draft panels, and they've been reviewed, and we now have, essentially sandwiches input.
We do, yes.
Into what they, to correct and make sure they reflect the correct.
So the purpose of this report for this evening is to make sure that we're content with the location of the 2 panels that are going to be related to the
Right, this was generally about the panels.
Yeah.
Yes, so sorry, I think this was the backstory and
Yes.
history of how the panels have come to be and where it, but what this report is about is where are you happy as a committee as to where those are going to go. There has been a slight update, so I think it was believed that in the places, in those 2 photos left of the under-confident building, that they would require listed building consent. However, if members are happier, if I can pass this round so you can see, if you would be happy with the panel being placed next to the museum, pass the notes round, this would not require any consent at all, and could just go ahead. There would be no cost, and would mean the whole process would be completed much quicker.
Are you saying, obviously not on the building
No,
itself?
so it would no longer be on the building. It would be next to, from what I understand, it would be next to
The ghastly thing you've got there.
The TARDIS.
The absolutely useless notice board that is hideous and totally unrealistic.
Stop thanking Dover District Council for these wonderful pieces of street furniture that
Do
we've
we have a sale or return on any items that they've installed?
Oh, yeah.
Councillor Black.
Yeah, thanks for clarifying. Yeah, I did wonder why those photographs were there. Right, so clarify the guidelines, and it's the whole number of panels. Then there's 2 examples here of the kind of data that would be in the QR code. Could I just ask one question though? It is about the famous sandwich, because if you go to the Montagues ancestral home, they have a completely different version about the 4-fellow sandwich, and how, I mean, this is anecdotally when he was gambling, but their version is completely different. And of course, there's presumably no real evidence. I must say Wikimedia as my main source. Is there any view about that from the people who know more about this than I do? But certainly the Montagues have a completely different version.
This is more about the placement than the content.
I understand that the content has to be accurate as well.
Yeah. Would you like to make a comment about the sandwich?
All I can tell you, Mr. Chairman, is what has been told to me, basically.
And realistically,
presumably.
it was a long time ago, and this is for America.
I was pulled up by our academic friends for suggesting that St Mary's was the oldest site of Christian worship in the town, because new academic people had discovered that this probably wasn't correct, and when I asked if I could see the reports and the research that had been done, nothing ever came back to me. So I just think sometimes academics, if people don't thoroughly agree with everything they say, it's wrong.
Right.
Recording has actually stopped because
we
the
have.
power has gone off on that.
We'll deal with. We do have.
I do apologise.
Right, if we can move on from animals, I think.
Well,
we need to make a decision. So yes, got distracted about Lord Montague's sandwich. Yes. Now, are we happy? Now, is it the 2 panels going by the Guildhall, by the museum, which?
No, I thought it was only one.
It's
There's
only
only
one.
one.
Yes.
So I'm proposing that we do put put it by the
Yes.
Guildhall Museum, because that will be an attraction to bring
Yeah.
punters into our wonderful museum. And secondly, it can be done without all these long-winded permissions, and we can get it in quicker. So,
So if
Would
we,
would that involve the demolition of this current hideous
Maybe accidental pressure.
yeah, I was just going to say the same. It might accidentally get knocked over by the workman whilst putting the
you've got my vote then.
So do we have anyone to second it?
yes,
So I'm proposing.
a second.
We can define where one panel goes, but the other one will still require planning permission. Is that
It
right?
would,
Yeah, and that will be
Yeah.
on the left-hand side of the.
on the left-hand side, yeah.
That's
But
the
not in
sensible
the
bit.
pens.
It'd be going where it was before, where it didn't need planning permission before, but now it does.
So you're proposing?
Yeah.
Yeah, and can we have a seconder? Councillor Black. And can we just vote on this? I think that's unanimous.
What about the sandwich?
Councillor Mayor, can we just have a vote of thanks to John?
Oh, yes,
For work.
I think that is,
I did say earlier, I did say
That's a
thank you.
huge
Yes.
amount.
I did say thank you to John, yeah, so I appreciate it, but for all the work that he's put in on this.
Yeah.
yes, if we can note that we've had a vote of thanks in the minutes. And if we can just note that we've had a vote of thanks.
Yes.
Also, could we ask if John wants to be stood down?
Oh, yes, yes.
You're welcome to stay, but if you want to, you can leave.
I'll leave it
Brown, brown.
Yes.
Oh, the
We're
great-
going to start something. Just a minute.
Thank
We're
you.
in the wrong place.
Right.
Thank you.
BE Day 80.
See you tomorrow, John.
Yes.
Don't be late.
Yeah, don't wake me up at 5 o'clock in the morning. Thank you. Thank you, everybody.
BE Day 80, councillors to discuss and share ideas for BE Day 80. If I can, Councillor Carter, I was going to say if I can show what I put on as a budget first, but I'm more than happy to discuss it first.
Thank you.
Sorry, I was just going to make a prior point, which you mentioned earlier, that we have discussed this at STC, and I just want to make sure that, again, we're not duplicating the effort.
Yes.
If we own it in this committee, that's brilliant.
Yeah.
That wasn't the outcome from the discussion at STC, because I've got the minutes in front of me.
This is for BE Day 80.
Yes.
Right.
We discussed it in July's STC.
Yes.
And there was a whole, if you remember, there was a fantastic
Yeah.
brochure of all the things you could do. And we had, we said we would get involved.
Yeah.
But at that stage it was kept within the auspices of STC. So if we take it here, if we do,
Which
then
is
I
what
think
I'm-
it's like STC.
What I'm going to propose to an extent.
Yeah.
Councillor Carter?
Oh yeah, so also I want to, before we come on to the word of the item of the elephant and memory, as it were, to use a sort of a simile, is I want everybody just to remember D-Day 80. So myself and the assistant town clerk and the town clerk and most of the Guildhall staff went to massive efforts, and some of you were there as stewards, some of you councillors were there as stewards, and we put on something called D-Day 80 down on the quayside, and we spent a reasonable sum of money on undertaking that. It was rather unusual weather for June, and so okay, that was perhaps something that might not be come next on the 8th of May next year. But can I just say, remember D-Day 80? So before we start asking Elon Musk if we can borrow some of his rockets and things like that, can we just make sure, a bit like Councillor Tuker was saying earlier about problem and solution, can we make sure there will be a demand for whatever we're putting on? Because I don't want people saying, oh, well, let's have, you know, street parties in all the streets, and then nobody bothers to do those. So, and then just finally, I just wanted to say, like Councillor Tuker, I've been online to see the official site for this, and it seems to go along a few narrow boundaries, which I think we should just stick to those boundaries. So that's beacon lighting, VE flag, bells, like as in church bells, and possibility of like peace lanterns, which I particularly think is good. But before anybody starts sort of booking Dame Vera Lynn or somebody, you know, some big party or something. Sorry? Oh, she? Oh, I don't know. Sorry, I'll beg your pardon. I think
3 years
that-
ago.
Oh, gosh, sorry. But I'm just saying, before we go to OTT, can we just think, you know, remember about what we put on before? Because the Guildhall staff worked very hard, and to tell you the truth, I could have counted the number of attendees on my 2 hands.
If I, can I? Right.
Far away.
I'll have a shot. Yes. Basically, I put in, because we were all asked for budget, and which included which particular committee it should fall under. And I've suggested Townscape and Heritage and Museum and Archives. Museum and Archives in particular for the first one, which is Leave to Land. Now, if I can put a bigger picture, and I've actually written to Leave to Land, I haven't had a response yet. A bigger picture of the period over VE Day, and if you bear with me, I'll include Sandwich Salutes the Forges because it is within 2 days of VE Day. And I believe that with the 2 events working and supporting each other, Sandwich can actually sort of stand out as being the go-to place for this event in East Kent certainly and wider. So Leave to Land was the display that we had in the Guildhall, which I hope you all went to see, about 4 months ago.
It was in January.
It was January, a long time. This year has gone a bit too fast. An excellent exhibition, and it is very key to one of Sandwich's contributions to Europe in a sense. It's the budget I put forward for this £300 being £250 deposit, which theoretically we get back, and a £50 carriage. And that's like this professional idea of
That will be a lot more.
it will be more in that case, but I have put a contingency.
Okay. You're looking at closer to 300 each way.
Right. In that case,
Just for insurance.
insurance. I think it is still very valid.
No, just to let you know.
Right. I have a £1,000 contingency, so we've allowed for that. It's, 1940s period singers. I know we have those for the D-Day celebrations. We also have them for Sandwich Salutes, but I had a brief word with Councillor Chipper with regard to the brocante on a forecourt, so potentially, because it's old stuff, a lot of it was made in the 1940s and before, so it sort of fits. But it means that we've got something, and this would be potentially through Sandwich Salutes, so that STC have something which draws people into town and can actually say, we've got Leave to Land here, we've got the brocante in the forecourt, which will potentially go through, not the brocante, but Leave to Land, through VE Day, and again draw people into Sandwich, so there is a static thing going on, but it is more than the lantern being lit. So singers potentially having a share of the cost, because Sandwich Salutes pays about approaching £1,000 towards singers, which if they're shared between the key, normally it would be with P22 and with the Del Street Party, but neither of those will be there. But again, to bring people into town. The final one, specifically for STC, is something that people can have. And I'm thinking the school kids, and I put a budget here of about £1,000, £500 to £1,000, whether it's pins, of the kind that we get for as an alternative to the paper copy, and with been given lots of designs on the VE Day, the distribution from HM government. And this could be pins, could be wristbands, but something so that what sort of age range, whether it's primary school, whether it's including secondary schools, that they've got something that they can hold and take away. And again, looking at the prices, wristbands, 450 for 1,000, or 570 for 2,000. So they're within the sort of monies that I think as a town council can consider. Or lapel pins, again such as this, we're getting £1 to £2 each, depending on how many you have. £500 for 500, and I've got a miscellaneous £1,000, which clearly is been eaten up already in the carriage, but never mind. But we get 250 quid back from me, so we're okay there.
Are those being given out for free?
That's what I would propose. For the kids, for free. For adults, selling them. So we have, and potentially, these normally are about £5, so sell 100, we pay for it. Through the museum, through wherever. But as I say, I would prefer to have an option for the kids to have it free. And just as an aside, on the sandwich salutes, I've already got the Hurricane. We're not having a Spitfire this year, we're having a Hurricane. And it's the 90th anniversary next year of the Hurricane being first flown. So that's where I'm proposing, plus we have the lantern being lit and the various items such as Councillor Carter suggested, but it starts to make it a little bit more exciting, a bit bigger. And the comment, the idea was to comment on the VEJ. So over to yourselves and Councillor Knight.
Yeah, that sounds great. I just wonder if there's any possibility of the museum also doing something on Ridgewell Fort because of its contribution in 1944 and to its 1945. The other concern I do have is that we have, if any sums have been put into publicity, because a lot's been done, and the council staff and councils have put a lot of effort in, but we don't seem to get the publicity. And if we don't do that, we will have again the situation that something is laid on. We cannot control the weather, and May is always a bit unpredictable. But I do think we need to be much cuter about our publicity. We've seen it this year that the publicity has not been particularly strong, for whatever good reasons.
Councillor Chica, and then...
Yes, so thank you for the effort you put in so far, Simon, that's great. Just a couple of things, picking up on the point in terms of practical aspects. Publicity is important, and I think we haven't been brilliant as a council about a number of things, so we might be able to be better for this event. The other thing is the one thing that came out of the D-Day event was that the council's activity was quite sprawled over an extent of time, and I think what we agreed at STC was to have something much tighter, because a lot of people and the weather certainly didn't help. If it had been balmy, hot, people would have been having picnics. It didn't happen. Much tighter, much more focused. And just one comment, just in considering about purchasing bulk items, can we just be careful around things like sustainability and waste? So if we're going to do something like that, let's be really critical about making sure what we're not doing is handing out in one hand and then people are just bringing it in another hand.
Which is why having something which has a value rather than a pen. And with regard to publicity, of course, with the sandwich salutes, I would expect to have, again, it's a threefold, so 6 panels, an element of that covering the VE Day, so that anybody who comes knows what's happening on the VE Day in Sandwich. So it's a complete list of that whole week from the Saturday, potentially the Friday when the leave to land might arrive, Saturday from Sandwich to Leeds, through to Thursday, which is BED. Oh no, I forgot to mention, I've also written to,
You have
yes,
Radio 4.
Radio 4, question time. Was it any questions? I've written to any questions. They were going to come this time last year. Well, the last 5 years ago, we had booked them and they were coming, and I've reminded them that of that. So hopefully we might just get any questions. If not, then we'll certainly have it sometime. I've given it as an invite from Mr. Mayor and Sandwich Town Council. As soon as they come back, Manwoods and both Manwoods and the secondary school, the technical school, have already said that they would be very interested in hosting. So who we go with,
I'm really good that that's happening, yes, and I do. I've looked at the brochure. I've attended a lot of the Sandwich Solids ones. My concern is, I think, wider. We need to think wider. I do think we need to pull together a plan which is a much more advanced use of this publicity. I don't know how much we're able to piggyback on national things, but I do think we need to get far more local interest.
Yeah.
It's been a struggle, I think, this year.
So I think the advertising of your events, Sandwich Salutes the 40s, works really well. So I think actually if we are joined up with that effort, I think it will do. Yes.
And also, you don't want too many people.
No.
And one of the things that I'm very conscious of is if you have too many people, they come into town, they can't park, they leave.
They come across the bridge.
Yes, they come across the bridge. We get 5,000 roughly over the course of the 3 days, and that's it's a reasonable number. Any more than that, and I think it's too many.
South East at 6, do we not contact them? They're always looking for stories at the end of every news bulletin. They say, if you've got a local story, tell us. It would be, and they're televising Sandwich, aren't they? It's not that you'll see, people are seeing the pictures, and it is very local to the area.
Yes,
so
well, all of this, yes. And Councillor Carter?
Oh yeah, I was just going to say, because just to defend Sandwich Town Council about advertising, for instance, the Speakers' Day event and even the installation of the Lord Warden, we approached both BBC and ITV news channels to come along to both of those, and they weren't interested at all. And they were two quite major events, and quite strangely, for Speakers' Day, I felt quite insulted because it was my day. Both of them said, "Oh, it's a weekend day. Sorry, we don't do weekends." So obviously news isn't made at the weekends. So, but also, I mean, with all these events, I've got he's the owner of Academy FM, and for all of these events, I asked the owner of Academy FM to put it out. And so, for instance, Remembrance Day recently was put out on Academy FM over 2 different days to explain about when that was on. Both the town clerk and I, although it's duplication, we both write to all 4 schools when we have any major events on in the town to ask them to get involved. Once again, very little. When I wrote for Remembrance Day, only 1 school actually came back and replied to me out of 4 schools. So it's not want of trying with the publicity, and we have had, I mean, I asked for the Facebook page to be set up for Sandwich Town Council, and that's been set up, and that is populated quite regularly for different events. The museum and archives have been publicising things as well, and we do have supplementary people such as Councillor Tuka and Mrs Glynn who share, and so the publicity for all these events is actually quite strongly undertaken. So it's unusual why we don't get it. So, and of course I publicise the events in something called community ads, which I've just done recently. I've submitted my article for that, and of course I always publicise anybody's event if it's a sandwich event. So really, I don't know, you're going to have to take out perhaps some billboards on the sandwich bypass or something.
We do.
Yeah.
I think one of the feedback that's been heard by a number of councillors recently is that the website's not, that's the go-to place that people will look for information, but if that isn't on there, sometimes you might scroll and see a bit of something, but you need to go back. You can't always put it back on Facebook, but if you've got a centre point where everything is up to date and kept, and I think that is something maybe that we could do better in the state.
So I'm assuming that you're project managing this now for this committee. Would that be reasonable?
I think it's reasonable.
Yeah,
yes.
good. That's great. You're the right person. What would be helpful, I think, in terms of as we move forward, is we have this as an agenda item each time, and we start focusing on certain elements. So, for example, any big event, you have a comms strategy ahead, you'd have key dates agreed. So I think on the Speakers' Day, I think there was a lot of information shared, but it was very late in the day. So it was only about a fortnight or so beforehand that it was publicised across the resident community, and I think the complaints that I saw were what's going on, what happened. So I think some lessons learned there about, and this is why a comms strategy is right, we say at -3 months, you do X. -2 months, you do Y. And I'm sure you already do that.
We do this. It's basically over the period from the point where we put in the event management plan, which is 3 months. We then build up to the brochure, any giveaways, any stickers, or I've already ordered the hurricane. It was either a sticker or a hurricane, but the 90th anniversary rather said hurricane. To the leaflets going out, we print about 2,500. They go out to all the shops and they're constantly topped up. That's about a month before. Any more than that, people say, oh yeah, I'll go to this, I'll put it on the side and forget about it. So a month is that key day.
Strategy to doing these things.
Yes.
Do you have visit Kent? Because I can see that comes up now, doesn't it? Dover put something up one weekly now, that tell you what's going on. And sandwiches beginning to be included. I've been moaning that it wasn't included.
No,
Visit Kent.
the speaker stuff was included, in Kent and certainly in White Cliffs.
Yes.
But locally, it was really two councillors who were trying to get as many photographs and publicity off our own bats.
Yeah.
And that was the situation that we were faced with. It might be useful, if they get a bit more deep on this, to actually raise it at the tourism forum as well, Simon, because as it comes close to that, we can also do something possibly through their offices, and I don't know how many people take flyers and so on in the various businesses that are members of things like Compass.
Yes, well, we do. We go to every. In fact, this year, just the event just gone, we had 2 leaflet drops. The first one was aimed specifically and printed for the outlets. So every shop got a leaflet describing what was going to happen, how they might be involved, what the previous year generated, an event essentially saying, consider staying open on Monday, because there's more people in Monday on an event weekend than there is elsewhere. And the feedback generally is Monday was their best day of sales throughout the year. So that works well.
Well, I can raise it at the next forum meeting as well.
Yeah, that's right. But I think also to distinguish between the sandwich salutes and STC's event, so that they both feed off each other, but they are distinct events. So anybody else, any other, before we move on to elephants, because I think this is just for information and discussion, and elephants now, over to you.
Well, I don't think there's much to say. I circulated what I know, what we've been looking at. this is something that came about at the tourist forum, that the DDC officers were saying that it works when you have a focus that children and families could come to in any town, and in Sandwich, well, I don't know if we can actually claim it was the first elephant, as I put in there, but I was asked by DDC that if we wanted to move it ahead, they would like costs, because I'm assuming at this stage that they think they might pick up the cost of this. So I've gone for, and they want 3 quotes, and they want it in by sort of February. Well, I've got the 2, the third one I'm still waiting for. I don't think anyone's going to take a metal elephant at nearly £100,000, but the other one might be a suitable, and it looks like an elephant. We know how it would be anchored down, and it would come in probably under about £9,000–10,000. It would last for 15 years. Yes, it would look like that. And the guy said, I've spoken to an email, that yeah, he can bring one in, they can do the anchorage and so on. It's in its embryo stage, I think, and what we do need Sandwich Town Council to at least be on board that if it was going to be put forward as a proper proposal, that they would be happy for that to go forward. So it's keeping you informed, in the loop, as it were. That's all this is at this moment.
Oh yeah, sorry. It's a great idea, and it's another interesting on the key, isn't it? So which builds up the key, because we'll have the Compass Rose soon, and then to have something like this. And also I was going to say quite a lot of other towns have similar things. So I think it was Portsmouth, where my daughter was at university, and they had different peaks all over the town. You had to find all the peaks, so which is a great idea. I was a little bit worried about the cost, but if Sandwich Town Council's not picking it up, that's not a problem. I was just going to say, I did 3 minutes research last night, and I went on a site, I don't know what it's all about, called Etsy, and there was a company on there that do a GRP full-size elephant, life-size elephant, which has got a 35 to 40 year lifespan, 2 to 4 weeks delivery, plus returns, so if you don't like it, return it, 4,596.
Does that include sort of securing it? Because I kept saying, and how much is this? Yeah, I mean, I can have a look. Or can you just send me?
Yeah, I can send you the details, and I'll just hasten to add, it was made in Germany, manufactured in Germany, as well. So it's not a Chinese.
So what is GRP?
Glass reinforced plastic.
Which is really strong, and it's weatherproof. So, and because the colour is put into the GRP, it doesn't fade or wash off. So some of these other items, if it's just a paint finish or lacquered even, it will, after 3 or 4, perhaps 5 years.
Yeah, the Hessian, obviously the metal wouldn't, but the Duke Hessian
one,
well, they're saying no, but again, 12–15 years is the maximum they would guarantee it.
Councillor Lack?
Yeah, my own concern is this thing about Colchester. There are a number of documents that suggest that Claudius, when he had his triumph in 43, had elephants with him. So we cannot therefore claim we are the first. I'd be prepared, if necessary, to write to, at least to ask Colchester Museum if they actually have any genuine documentation, because scholars are in doubt about this as to whether it was. Because it'd be a bit daft just claiming it, and then there's strong evidence that Colchester was about 500 years beforehand.
And the colour, I had a look at this documentation too, and the problem is that people didn't take photographs.
No, we don't.
And they appeared not to know whether they were really were elephants or whether they were some other
Yeah.
massive. I mean, that was the problem. But anyway, I agree with you.
Councillor Chuka and then Councillor Rutherford.
Yeah, so I think my perspective is if it's on DDC land and if they're willing to pay for it, that's great to be kept informed.
Yeah.
I think from a budget perspective, we have a lot of challenges in the next couple of years, so let's hope that that's where it remains. And I was just going to say, to be honest, the elephant that came through Sandwich, the story is not the most pleasant story. To be
No, it
honest.
isn't.
So we have to just reflect on that.
We do celebrate our murdered mayor, so.
Yes, because
Which is what
it's an animal, so it's
Yeah, but
slightly
it's less
different.
more important.
Yeah. Animals are more important than humans.
I just think that we don't have to claim it was the first one in the country. We could say, you know, that an elephant came in via the wherever it came in, and I think it's a brilliant idea. I think it would be massively popular with families and kids. And things. Yeah, so I think we should be positive about it and not all sort of negative.
I think in all we just keep it, you will keep it in mind, and obviously I will just feed that.
Thank you. Just, I know we're having new items in the children's play park. Can one of them be elephant themed?
Well, it's strange you should say that because we did put in an application for the co-op funding, which we didn't get, but part of that was to add to the children's playground themed flowers. You can buy massive flowers that they can either take apart or spin round, or you can collapse them. So something they could play with, an interactive game. And so actually it is quite a good idea, a couple of elephants down there.
So in terms of the play park, it's not an organic process, should we say. Three contractors have already been given the specification by DDC, because myself and Vicky are going to be on the evaluation panels, but we're being driven by it's a DDC project, as you know.
Yeah.
But if there's some peripheral stuff that might be possible, we'll certainly try and feed it in.
Yeah, that was
Yeah.
all. We put it in because it was something to do with something blue, but it was adding some money. But we haven't got that money anyway, so it's
Now you see it, now you don't.
Can we cover that? If we can go to number 11, items for in particular information only, matters for January 2025 meeting. Obviously there's much that we've already decided to include in January. Is there anything that anybody wanted to add on the agenda? Obviously that can be added later on. Otherwise we will move on to number 12, date and time of the next one. Oh sorry,
When I looked at the terms of reference, because of I did notice on it, this committee has responsibility for the public conveniences.
Can we?
So there is an issue about the state of certain ones that the Guildhall car park. They're functional, they work. But I just wonder, is there something we should be doing in this committee in terms of looking about what will happen with our refurbishment? I'm not putting my hand up to do a project plan or anything. I'm just saying there's been a few residents making noises about it. And I don't think DDC, whilst it's their property, are willing to do any refurbishment of it. And I then popped in just to survey them, only the gents. And it's very functional, should we say.
Yes, very functional.
Right, I think just a final point on that, sorry, is the most important thing is knocking them down and disabled toilets put in for those. So I wouldn't say just refurbish what's there, let's put something in for wheelchair users as well in those toilets. That's the most important.
Because of the steps, if the access isn't there.
So we don't actually want refurb, we want rebuild with disabled toilets in place.
Can we actually have this as an agenda item? So we can close the meeting. Number 12, date and time of next meeting, 15th of January 2024.
I put 24, but I don't
Oh,
think 25.
25.
Sorry.
Yes.